Much, Lutik Molomosani here from Winsome, Africa. It's a great privilege to be here and to present to the members of the portfolio committee. I stand before you today not just as an entrepreneur, but someone who's deeply involved in transformation through business and community development. And I represent Winsome Africa, which is a consultancy that primarily helps entrepreneurs. Now, let me start by saying that, I cannot help but constantly reflect on this question, that one day my children will ask me and say, Dad, when 1,500 entrepreneurs were forced to shut down their businesses in 2024, where were you? I hope with all my heart that I'll be able to answer and say, we showed up and we showed up on time. But the reality is that we did not show up on time because we should have been able to save those 1,500 entrepreneurs, as they are very instrumental in creating jobs and opportunities for young people. Now, we are here at Winsome Africa to speak on behalf of those entrepreneurs, especially youth entrepreneurs who are struggling to survive in this difficult economic climate. Now, the 2025 State of Nation Address and the subsequent budget show a commitment to support entrepreneurs and create jobs. But unfortunately, there's a glaring gap between the promises made and the resources provided. So this gap threatens the future of South Africa's economy, particularly for youth and small businesses. So we want to look at that missing link between what SONA presented and what the budget says. And we realize that there is a huge gap. Now, we look at what the SONA has promised and what the budget presented. And particularly, the budget made this bold promise about a 20 billion rand annual fund to support businesses, particularly Black-owned businesses, women-led businesses, and disability-owned businesses. The fund was supposed to address the historical exclusion of these entrepreneurs, providing them with the resources they need to grow and scale and create jobs. However, when you look at the 2025 budget, there is no mention of that 20 billion transformation fund. Instead, the budget allocates money for infrastructure projects and broad support for small businesses, but it fails to dedicate specific resources to the entrepreneurs who needs it the most. And this omission raises an important question. How can we claim to be serious about empowering marginalized communities if the funds promised are not materializing? And so these are some of our proposals. So we propose that that fund that the president spoke about, that 20 billion rand transformation fund, immediately be established and included in the budget. And this fund must be targeted and transparent, focusing on Black-owned, women-led, and disability-owned businesses in undeserved communities. We proposed, Chair, that 20 billion rand annually, ensuring that the fund is directed towards businesses that create jobs and contribute to economic transformation. We propose that we introduce capacity building programs alongside financial support to ensure businesses not only receive money, but also the tools and the knowledge they need to succeed. We propose that we ensure that community-based monitoring and evaluations mechanisms are established to track the impact of these funds that are allocated to entrepreneurs. Now, this fund, what we'll do, it will serve as a catalyst for inclusive economic growth, empowering those most excluded from economic opportunities. And we secondly propose that there needs to be a scale up of youth employment initiatives. Now, the president made a compelling call to action to support the youth employment through initiatives like YES and South African Mobi. Now, these platforms are vital and important to creating job opportunities for young people. But yet the budget fails to address these initiatives directly. So we recommend that these youth employment initiatives needs to be directly linked to what the budget says. They need to introduce tax incentives for businesses hiring youth through these initiatives. They need to be a fund that is allocated to expand on the South African Youth Mobi platform so that it can even reach more young people. And we propose that there needs to be a partnership with youth-funded incubators and training programs to equip young people with skills for the workforce. Now, I want you to take a look at this picture. This picture was just taken last week in a rural place called Ramasemola in Sekhukhune in Limpopo. And here we find young people queuing up. There were over 500 young people queuing up for just 2 vacancies. And those 2 individuals that were hired, they were selected through a draw. So they'll put their names in a basket, over 500 people queuing up like this. So this is the reality and the context that these budget discussions are taking place in. And I think it's important that sometimes we take note of what's happening on the ground. And this is the third proposal we want to make, the overhauling support for SMEs. Now, in 2023, in the State of Nation address, the president spoke about removing red tapes and barriers for SMEs, making it easier to access finance and be able to move their businesses forward. Now, in 2025, in the SONA, the president repeated the same thing. In 2023, he had alluded to establishing a committee. But however, when you look at the 2025 budget, it lacks specific interventions to address these issues. So we must overhaul the current SME support system by reducing the red tapes and providing direct access to capital. And we need to do this by creating a centralized platform that consolidates access to loans, grants, mentorship, and regulatory support, and simplify some of these regulations for small businesses to help them scale up quickly and avoid obstacles. We need to allocate funds that can provide financial support, especially for cooperatives, which sometimes are overlooked in the broader scheme of the SME programs. Now, as small businesses are the backbone of our economy, and if we do not empower them with the resources they need, we will continue to see entrepreneurs struggle to survive rather than thrive. And so we want to urge this committee that they be a specific allocated funds to drive SMEs and avoid the issue we had last year of 1,500 SMEs closing shop. And for the sake of time, we're going to leave it here. And we just want to end with this call to action to the committee. We're at the crossroads, and the actions we take today will shape the future of our economy and the lives of our youth. I urge this committee to act decisively to fulfill the promises made for job creation, youth employment, and entrepreneurship. I urge this committee to act now to close the gap between the promises made in the SONA and the reality reflected in the 2025 budget. By acting decisively, we will empower entrepreneurs, create sustainable jobs, and build an inclusive economy that benefits all South Africans. We will leave it there for the sake of time, and the rest of our submissions are included in the comprehensive document we have submitted. Let's ensure that when our children one day ask us, where were you? We can proudly say we showed up, and we showed up on time. Ke a leboga, Chairperson.
And then Winsome Africa, I thought your presentation was absolutely brilliant. Well done. I think your transfer fund is an excellent idea. I mean, Action SA has proposed something very similar called the Opportunity Fund. And I think you raise a very pertinent issue about red tape. And it's not only a factor in the SMEs, but it's also in broader business. And I think, Chair, it's something that we need to highlight when we report back to the Minister is the impact of red tape. And I encourage Winsome Africa, the presenter, to contact me because I'd love to have further dialogue with you.
Also, the last one to Winsome, the question is, which economic sector can have the highest job creating potential, and how should the fiscal policy support such sectors assessing the current budget of 2025? Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. There was one question from Honorable Ndlovu relating to which economic sector will be the most ideal to invest in order to create more jobs. I answering this question, we need to look at the local economy. I think there's too much focus on the cities and the suburbs and expecting everyone to come to the city in order to find a job, but we neglect rural economy, where there's many people that are unemployed are in the rural economy, in the townships, are in the squatter camps. So if we can create an employment in the rural area, then there's no need for people then to be traveling to the city in order to find something. So the focus needs to be in the rural area, and specifically in the area of farming. Just this past Sunday, I was speaking to a young farmer in Limpopo, in Masemola, and a small-scale farmer, and he employs 30 people. And those 30 people, they cost him around 80,000. Now, that's in the rural area. I mean, 80,000 for 30 people, that's a small amount of money. But just look at the amount of people that are now employed. It's 30 people, and it only costs you 80,000. And obviously, because in the rural area, the cost of living is low, so you can really do more with little. So that's one area that I think there needs to be a specific fund that is allocated to farming in the rural area, industrialization in the rural area. And I think if we can just invest a significant amount of money in that, there is no reason why we shouldn't have the unemployment rate. So I think that's one area that is neglected and needs to be looked at, not in a broad sense of just allocating money to say, oh, small business, but make it specific that this is for the rural area. All right, that's the answer to the question.